skies of Roswell, New Mexico one evening in 1947. Since this incident, it's been a contested event with stories ranging from a crashed weather balloon by the U.S. military to the downing of an alien spacecraft intentionally. In 1997, Lieutenant Colonel Philip J. Corso published his book, The Day After Roswell, which explains an account of a massive cover-up involving alien beings in a crashed spaceship. How can we get to the bottom of this? How can we find the truth as to what happened? Remote viewing is one of those tools that we can use to explore this further and gather some data. This target has been viewed by multiple remote viewers, especially in recent history. The data they've collected does point to the possibility that there was in fact a spacecraft that was shot down containing beings that were not human. Dennis Nappy II here, and I'm continuing my journey as a remote viewer in training, and I was fortunate enough to be tasked to view this historical target. Please keep in mind that I'm a rookie remote viewer and don't have as much experience as the more seasoned remote viewers out there, but I am rather proud of the data that I collected on this one. I feel that I had good target contact, and once I got the target reveal, it all sort of made sense to me what I was looking at. If you're interested in remote viewing, I highly recommend checking out my friend and teacher's page, remoteviewed.com. That's the website of Daz Smith. Daz, I always say, is the historian of remote viewing. He's the archivist. He's got everything you need to know about remote viewing. He's got articles, he's got historical accounts, he's got Freedom of Information Act releases, everything there. Everything you ever wanted to know about remote viewing, remoteviewed.com is where you want to go. I met Daz through my work with the crypto viewing team, where we use remote viewers Edward Reardon, Dick Allgaier, Daz Smith, and now Hitomi, as we look at very timely events, not just at cryptocurrencies, but their impact on world events and the coming change that is now upon us. Coronavirus is just the tip of the iceberg. We're doing good work with this team, and I highly recommend you check us out at cryptoviewing.com. Back to this little side project that I'm working on. I recently contacted my brother, who is also inexperienced like me with actually working remote viewing targets, but it's something we're curious about, something that we want to learn. I've worked with the viewers enough where I was able to guide him into creating a tasking document. Not to say mistakes can't be made, but this was our first attempt at really putting a target together, and I'm pleased with the results. So this target was tasked to me by my brother, Mike Nappy. I want to stress that I was completely blind to this target. What that means is I had no idea what this target was other than a set of 8-digit coordinates, an 8-digit coordinate number. The only request I had was that the last digit be a number 1. That's something that I've picked up from Daz, because when you draw your ideogram, which is your first contact with the target, it's easier to go into creating an ideogram if the last digit is a 1. You can do it with any number, you can do it with a letter. It's just what I'm learning right now, so that's the only requirement I gave my brother when he was tasking this. So all I knew was this 8-digit number. I sat down, I did 2 sessions on this. We were going to do more about that in a minute, but that's all I knew about this target until the target was revealed to me once I was finished with my second session. It's important to be blind when working remote viewing target, because if you know what the target is, how can you discern what's your imagination and what is actual data that you're obtaining? And I've studied the Roswell crash. I've interviewed Daz with his remote viewing experiences with the Roswell crash. I've read Colonel Corso's book, The Day After Roswell. I interviewed Colonel Corso's son, Phil Corso Jr., on my Show the Secret podcast as well. So I've looked quite extensively and thought a lot about this target. If I had known what the target was, then I would have gotten a ton of data that most likely would have been my imagination. In looking at my data, like I said, I did 2 sessions on this one. And right off the bat, when I first started, I drew a triangular shape. I drew a bunch of swirls on it. And I just wrote reflective. In looking at what the target is now, I wonder, was that my initial contact with the craft that crashed in Roswell? For my S2 data, where I'm describing just low-level sensory data, I wrote down force, open, airy, space, spacious, malevolent, gratuitous. And I had the words for an AOL of a craft, filament, and fiber. Now it's interesting, obviously this target was a craft. In terms of filament or fiber, what Colonel Corso claims in his book is that we obtained the technology for things like fiber optics from the recovered materials from this ship when it came down. So I wonder, was I tapping into that part of the signal line? My next ideogram, I labeled it as a structure. I wrote down for my S2 data, object, compressive, movement, fleeting, residual, squishy. Some of this might be noise, but then I drew an AOL. I got an image of a shape in my mind, and I wrote, like a hot air balloon. And I had this impression of, it was thinner in the middle and wider at the top and the bottom. Whether you prescribe to the U.S. military story of a downed weather balloon, or the fact that it was the possibility that it was an alien craft, this sketch could be a connection to that target. My third ideogram I labeled as space, and I wrote range, distant, spiky, far, afar, a bridge, a gap. I had an AOL of a comet, again, an object coming from space crashing down to Earth. I again wrote down surface structure, open, airy, flat, surface. I had a little bit higher level data here. I wrote plateau, desert, landscape, dry, arid. I wrote down plains, desert, mesa, Colorado, Midwest, Southwest, Arizona. Didn't quite get New Mexico, but I was close. And I've never really gotten location data before in my viewings. So this was a new step for me, which was pretty cool to get some kind of a location. I'd take that as contact there. And that continues when I moved to my S2 level. I had silence for my sounds here. Smells, I had gritty, exhaust, chemical, and factory smells. I wrote down the word gridlock, and I drew this shape, and it was like a sphere in the middle, and then I had these energetic bands wrapping around it. And then it was above what seemed like a city light landscape. And I wrote down AOL of Las Vegas. I wrote down Aurora Borealis. Was the craft flying over Las Vegas, Nevada? Was it in that area? Is it something similar to where it crashed in Roswell, New Mexico? I had for the touch neon charged, buzzing, vibration. When I tried to connect with the energetics, I wrote down shaky, warm, pulsing. When I turned my attention to the subspace realm, I came up with cold, flowing, throwing, pulsing. After that, I stopped. I was exhausted, and I was actually starting to go in and out of dream states. I was having very vivid dreams of my childhood neighborhood, and I thought, well, my brother is the tasker. Maybe I am getting some kind of memory that he wants me to look at from our childhood. But I felt I was too tired to continue, so I ended the session. The next day, I was at it again. As I was warming up for this target, I wrote down gentle, rocking forward and backward, soft and smooth. So as I was preparing to do this target, I just felt this gentle flow of movement back and forth. And then got an AOL, keyword, ship, is what I wrote. Again, completely blind to the target, no idea what it was. Right off the bat, I get an AOL of a ship. And then I had a structure for my first ideogram. Thin, oblong, abrasive, intuitive, and obstructive. Now, intuitive is the one that stands out to me, and had I been if I was a more experienced viewer, I probably should have probed that a little bit further in a later stage and expanded on what that means. But I know that there has been speculation that these crafts are intuitively piloted. They're connected to the consciousness of the pilots, of the beings, of whatever these beings are that fly them, whether they're an AI or a hybrid or whatever. There's some kind of intuitive connection. I got another structure here for my next ideogram. Spherical, smooth, abrasive. I wrote down as AOLs, stone, concrete, sandpaper. And again, some of this could be noise. My next ideogram, obstruction, pain, remorse, loss, filling, residual. And I got a question in my mind, and I see Edward Reardon does this a lot too, so I felt pretty cool. I wrote, what happened here? Is it a location? Well, yes, Roswell is the name of the location. That's a significant location. And I came back and I explored that a little bit later. I got another S1 sketch, space/land, flat, surface, land, desert, barren, wasteland, landscape. And as an AOL, I wrote mesa, canyon. I wrote Mars with a question mark. Is that connected to the target, or is it just noise? Did this craft come from Mars? Not enough data is known at this point, but is it a possibility? I think so. I got another structure here, and I wrote, again, metallic, splintered. I wrote painty, sharp, jagged, rugged. Then I had an AOL again, roof, dagger, craft. There's craft again. And underneath that, I wrote spaceship. My next ideogram I wrote as space, empty, foreboding, metallic, structure, fumbling, falling. Was I connecting to this craft that was falling from the sky? And again, I had a wasteland, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, was I just tapping into a previous session that I had worked a couple months ago? Or is this somehow connected, because some people think that these craft showed up in greater numbers after the atomic bombs fell? Is there a connection to that? I don't know. Again, more space, and I got life form, space, open, obnoxious, barren, residual, explosive, expressing, foreboding. Here's my AOL. Alien, foreign. And again, there's noise mixed into here, but I think there's good data in there. I'm going to leave it to you guys to determine if I'm on target or if I'm just way off here. More space, empty, nothing, location, foreboding. Then I had foraging, life forms. And then I wrote again, S1.5, life forms foraging, and I asked the question, and this is significant when you see one of my stage 3 sketches, and if you read Colonel Corso's book, he talks about the human military response. When they arrived, they were foraging the area for every tiny scrap that was connected to this craft and picking up the debris field everywhere and loading it on the trucks. That's Colonel Corso's testimony as stated in his book. Is that what I was picking up on? When you see the tasking document, I think you'll draw your own conclusions. I really started to have good contact with the target here. Again, when I moved into my S2 data, grinding, the sounds I was getting, grinding, stones crunching, stressful sounds. Could this be just the sound of a crash, grinding? The visuals I was getting, browns, grays, blues, reflective, shiny, bright, brilliant. And then I had an aesthetic impact, just like an emotional impact. It's like, wow, magnificent. And I imagine it would have been a magnificent sight to see if you witnessed this craft either flying or falling. And I wrote stunning. To touch it, I wrote down gritty, granular, pasty. The taste was sharp, biting, and pungent. And I drew this circular shape, and I put arrows on it to indicate that it was spinning in a counterclockwise motion. And I wrote AOL, storm surge, bowl, or craft. And a little bit further down, I drew the same thing, these concentric circles, and as my AOL, I wrote, is this a lenticular cloud? And if you've ever looked at lenticular clouds, they are often mistaken for UFOs. Does that mean I'm looking at a UFO and my mind's interpreting it as a lenticular cloud? Does that mean there was actually no craft at all, and in fact it was some kind of lenticular cloud that people were seeing? Let's look at the rest of the data. When looking at the energetics there, swirling, spinning, energetics, centripetal force, subspace, I just wrote pulsing energy here. It's slower. The smells that I got associated with this target at this stage, electric, dusty. I wrote down carbon. And looking at the mass and density and the space and the volume of this target, heavy, weighted, massive, sinking, restrictive. I drew another sketch here, and I had that almost a donut shape with a cone at the bottom. And as my aesthetic impact, again, my emotional impact from this portion of the target, I just wrote one word: awestruck, which is, I imagine, how anybody would have felt in 1947 coming upon a downed, potentially alien spacecraft. All right, moving into my stage 3 sketches here. Again, I got more of that circular donut shape, and I wrote the words pinched in the middle. And I had the idea in my head of that silver bean structure that you see. It's very shiny, very reflective, but it gets kind of concave in the middle. I couldn't remember the name at the time. And I drew this twice, and I wrote down it's smooth, slippery, residual, rounds, it's glowing. Is it reflective, I asked. Heavy, solid, structural, it's support, beamed, hexed. I think I've read in exploring maybe some of the Bob Lazar stuff and exploring some of these craft, that there was like a hex or a honeycomb shape within some of these craft. I kept getting this structure. It was like a 3-tiered structure with towers on the top of it. Towers, there was some kind of ladder or wires coming off of it. I wrote down a possible suspension bridge as an AOL structure. I wrote down the word futuristic, old, wasteland. It was like an old and a new feeling. I definitely got this futuristic thing, and maybe this was the technology of the craft itself. These towers, now they say that the craft was downed by radar. Was I picking up on the radar towers, or just some towers in the area that were around where the craft crashed? I need to do more research on that. If you, as the people watching this, have more information, please send it my way. I have a picture up here so you can take a look at it. I described this tower, this structure, as smooth, hard, open. I put, this feels not here. Futuristic, somewhere else. I asked the question, what happened here? Sketch and describe. Cue on the event. Nothing. There are towers here. Swirling. So are there fault lines here? So I don't know. This might just be straight up noise. I'm putting it out there with all of you in case you have any feedback. That would be helpful for me on that. Now, this next sketch here is what I think is the most significant one, and when we talk about what the tasking document was, what the tasking of this target was, you'll understand why. But I started seeing, I wrote down bright, charged, expanding awareness, heavy, frozen, fixed, and I drew a group of life forms around this. I sketched as just this ball of energy. And I wrote it as a AOL of a dust bowl, a dust cloud, and I would think when something crashes, you're going to have some kind of smoke or dust bowl coming out around it. But I had this group of life forms that were surrounding this object, this structure, this energy, whatever it was, and I described it like this: life forms, all struck, event, consuming, flooding, flying, perching, descending, ascending, fluid, motion, energetics, slow, rolling, boiling, fuming. Now, again, when you read Colonel Corso's book, he talks about the response of the U.S. military, how they swarmed the area, and these people were awestruck at the realization that, oh my goodness, we downed what they thought was an alien spacecraft. And I would imagine if that's what happened, they would be experiencing something just like what I described there, which is a pretty cool feeling to be connected with this target. I drew another sketch here. I said, move to the most interesting aspect and sketch/describe. And I wrote down falling, splitting, halving, opening, spreading apart. Is this what happened to the ship when it fell? Did it fall in half? Did it split apart? I wrote down passageway, pathway, the way through, a conduit, travel or a mode of travel, transport, vestibule, towering, monotonous, region. An AOL of a sphinx. I don't know if that means there's an Egyptian connection, or maybe I'm just getting some noise. Then I asked the question, who built this? And this was really cool for me. I focused on that, who built this, sketch and describe. And I had an aesthetic impact right away. This feels intense, like a hardship. And I immediately felt what I could describe, and I didn't write down this word, but it almost felt like slavery. And I got glimpses of people with brown skin and black hair, and they felt Central American. I wrote the word dark-skinned, I sketched down a face, and I wrote AOL, Central America, Aztec, Mestizo. And then I saw, again, it's quick, it's not like I'm getting this crystal clear movie, I'm just getting these little flashes here. again, these tan, dark-skinned men wearing no shirts, and they're dead. They're laying with their arms sprawled out, and there was just a bunch of bodies. And I wrote down deceased, question mark, exhausted, and AOL, genocide. And I put in quotes, our people, divide, splitting, having. And again, I had that lenticular cloud shape spinning in a counterclockwise direction. What does that mean? Was I looking at the life forms that were a part of the craft? I was trying to see who built the structure. Was I looking at the people who built it? Is there a connection here between whatever was piloting the craft and the enslavement or some form of genocide of people here on Earth, Central American people? I don't know. Maybe it's just a lot of noise that I'm getting. Again, I'd like to hear your feedback on it. Any remote viewers out there that have viewed this target, I'd love your comments as well, and let me know how close was I in terms of these beings that I was perceiving, these life forms that I saw. Is there something that we can learn from that? Again, I'm a rookie. I've never done a target like this and felt that I got this level of detail. Doesn't mean it's not accurate, but we have to take into consideration I am a rookie. So there you have it, my friends. That's my first experience with Roswell. I hope that someday I get tasked to it again. I did plan to do a third session, but rookie mistake, I accidentally opened up my email and saw the label of the target of the tasking document as Roswell. At that point, I knew the session's done. I'm front-loaded. I can't explore this target any further. I was so bummed. Maybe that was some kind of divine or, ET intervention stopping me from looking any further. Who knows? We can speculate that rabbit hole all day long. But at that point, it's just not going to be any good because I'm really trying to stay blind on my targets here. It's not worth exploring if I'm front-loaded. But it was a lot of fun. So I welcome your feedback. I'd love to hear what you have to say. How'd I do? The good and the bad. I'd love to hear it because it all helps me out tremendously. Oh, and a quick reminder, please check out Daz Smith's website at remoteviewed.com. I hope you're following Dick Allgaier and his crypto viewing updates on YouTube. Excellent and entertaining and informative. Check out Edward Reardon's deep dives down the rabbit hole whenever he does a target on his YouTube channel. And check us out, cryptoviewing.com or patreon.com/cryptoviewing. We're doing important work. Last and certainly not least, I want to thank my brother Mike Nappy for being the tasker on this and experimenting with me as well as we're both learning on this journey. Check him out. He's a very talented musician at nappymusic.com. You won't be disappointed. So that's it for now. I'm Dennis Nappy II, reminding you to let your intuition be your guide. Thanks for watching.